Welcome back, listeners, to Learning from Friends. My name is Cade Curtis, your tour guide on this lovely adventure that we get to do every 2 weeks, sometimes a little earlier, sometimes a little later. Just depends kind of what we going on. I am so glad that we are going to go on to episode 56 today. I'm very surprised that I've made it this far at this point, and here we are. I think I say that every week, but it's an excitement joy because you never know what life's going to throw at you. But as you all know that have been coming and listening, even if it's 1, 10, 50 episodes in at this point, I do my mom's quote of the day before getting into the topic. So, Mom, take it away.
6 plus 3 equals 9, but so does 5 plus 4. The way you do things isn't always the only way to do them. Respect other people's way of thinking.
Thank you, Mom. It's always something to say when you can hear your mother's voice or a family member's voice to really provide that honesty here and that joy here. And my mom is one of my favorite people in this entire world. I'll go and throw it out there. She's my favorite person in this entire world. And so being able to have her contribute to my podcast every week goes a long way, because all these quotes that you're hearing come from my mom that she sends to me. It may be through Facebook. It may be a text message. It may be when we're talking to conversation. She always gives me these, and I always try to keep a little collection of them. So, Mom, thank you. So to go into this podcast, speaking of moms, this is a very special, wonderful individual that I have been looking forward to have on this podcast. She is a Navy wife, homeschool mom, mom of 2, a registered nurse, superwoman, and most of all, the key thing here is her name is Jade. Jade, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Kate, for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
It is something special because we have a special connection because we go back to middle school, good old Teasley Middle School in Canton, Georgia. And Jade was the very first person that I asked out. And so that's something very special. Middle school, 8th grade. I was on 8D, and were you on 8E? Was it?
E? Oh my gosh, yeah. 8C, I think, or 7C, and then 8E. Yep.
Yeah. You were the Eagles. I was the Diamondbacks.
Yes, we were right next to each other, and I cannot believe that we were able to become friends in middle school. And I moved away that summer to Kentucky and then Alabama, and now all across the country with the Navy, and we have still maintained our friendship, and I love that.
I definitely remember senior year in high school. I finished up graduation. It was Memorial Day weekend. It had wrapped up. I came home, and me, my buddy Z, and Ed hopped in a car, and we drove up. And the first night, we made it up to Kentucky and stayed with Jade for the night, hung out, we caught up, and then we drove and kind of continued on our adventure. But we've always kind of kept in touch, Jade. That's been the cool thing.
Don't forget, I went with Billy and crashed your prom junior year as well.
That's true.
With you in your lime green suit, rocking it.
Yep. That was my dad's 3-piece suit that he had made for him. I'm going to probably get this wrong, but I believe it was his 18th birthday that was custom made for him. So, and I can't remember which family member made it for him. So,
well, yeah. You were rocking it.
What can I say?
Can't believe. Yes.
So there is a large majority here of the audience that has no idea who Jade is. Can you give us like a little bit of like a Wikipedia page summary? It could be 5 seconds. It could be 5 minutes. It could be 2 hours, whatever you feel that you would like to share with this audience of some highlights from your life.
Well, I am originally from Montgomery, Alabama. My parents divorced when I was 5. It was very difficult for my brother and I as we were split between both parents. Having to spend some time with our mom and traveling back and forth between mom and dad. It became even more challenging when that 30-minute drive apart between our parents became 3 hours when we moved to Georgia. I'm glad we did because that's where I met you and so many other friends for middle school in Georgia. But the traveling back and forth every other weekend to Alabama was stressful. And of course, complaining, be careful what you complain about because it got even worse when we moved to Kentucky and it became a 6.5-hour drive, 6.5-hour drive between Kentucky and Alabama. And then my dad remarried and moved to Mississippi, which added even more hours back and forth every other weekend and summer split. It was a fun childhood, let me tell you. And then, of course, I went back to Alabama to go to nursing school at Troy University. And this is back where all my family was and where I ran into my now husband, Kyle. We actually grew up together. His
Wow.
dad and my mom worked at the same hospital in Alabama. And so there's actually a video of him and I at my first Christmas at his house
Aw.
where I'm a baby and he's a little bit older and we're there together for Christmas. So we have our families kept in touch and so did we. And we ended up hanging out one weekend and have been together ever since. A year after we started dating, we eloped as a military lifestyle. It's one of the things, eloping. And we've been married for 13 years now. We've lived in South Carolina, California, Washington State, New York, and now we are stationed in Tennessee. We have two wonderful kids, Tyler, who is turning 7 next month, and our daughter, Haley, who is 5. And right now we have decided we need to stay home with the kids. I'm a registered nurse and was working full time when we had our kids. And then COVID hit with lack of childcare. And my husband being deployed, I stayed home. And we have enjoyed having me home, and homeschooling the kids has given us another level of freedom that we do not have in the military. So it gives us a little bit of a choice on family time, and we have thoroughly enjoyed that.
And that's a superhero within itself of being a homeschooling parent, because I can only imagine teaching that young of a children trying to make that work, because of that's you're having to judge two different curriculums here. You're having to balance out making sure that they're still getting their socialization with people, and I'm going to sleep in today, or I'm not going to work today, or the teacher mom kind of dynamic too can be really challenging. So I have 3 friends that were teachers as homeschooling teachers, and I'm like, that takes very special love and care to do that. And hats off to you as a going into my, oh my gosh, what year is it? 11th year of teaching. So hats off to you on that. That's just,
Yes, I will say that I am not an expert in it by any means. This is actually just starting our 2nd year of homeschooling. So we're still new to seeing how things go. But so far, we are loving the flexibility of, like you said, if we wake up one morning and we just do not feel like doing school, then we go to the playground and have a fun day together. And we can then come home and do school at night in the evening. And we have the flexibility of doing it whenever we want to and not missing out on fun activities and traveling to see family. Our kids can do a lot of their curriculum while I'm driving.
see, there you go. You can add in special field trips.
Yes. Yes.
We're going to the zoo today.
Yeah, when we go down to Alabama to see family, like, all right, we're going to go see family, 5-hour car ride. They get all of their work done. And then we have a couple of free days to play with family. And then they do work on the way back. So helps the car rides, not arguing and fighting in the car. It helps.
I remember that, being a child of 3 and getting into arguments and stuff in the back. And thankfully, when CD players came around and we all had our own little space and headphones, that saved things. And I was a child that could not sleep in the car. So
yay, technology.
Yeah. Technology can be a good thing and a bad thing. It's that whole blessing and a curse. It really is.
Very true.
So the topic that we're going to get in with, talking about being a Navy wife, there's a lot of jargon out there. There's a lot of some vocabulary you're going to use today, or some terms that maybe perhaps as we're going through, if they'll come up, sometimes they'll come up. But if you have some already right out of the gate that that you're going to use, can you fill us in some of those?
Yes. So a couple of the topics that I'll probably discuss. The number one that you hear from a lot of military throughout all the branches, because there are different branches of the military. They have their own different jargon and documents and tools and things that they use. So some things are different, but for us, the one thing I'm going to say a lot is all of our moves. We call those a PCS, which is a permanent change of duty station, where my husband will receive orders to move to a different base or command. And the orders list the date that he has to leave one place and report to the next. So that's called PCS and orders.
Okay.
And then my husband, being a service member, is also service member, also known as the sponsor, while myself and our children are considered dependents. With a Navy sailor, he has sea duty and shore duty.
Okay.
Sea duty encompasses a seagoing command where he is going to be attached. Most often, he's attached to an aircraft carrier. There's different ships and submarines, and so for him, he's on an aircraft carrier for deployment. And have a rotation of a period of time that we're assigned there for deployments, and then he has shore duty where we're essentially attached to a shore command, so no
attached
deployment.
To a shore. Sorry, this is kind of funny. Attached to a shore. My brain just automatically goes to like we're attached here, like we're now like have our hands stuck and we cannot move.
Yes. The other TAD, where they're temporarily assigned duty, so where even though he may be on shore duty and not have to deploy, there are times where he gets sent off for training. So those are TAD orders. The other common one that he has to do is duty. Our kids love saying that word.
Oh yeah, all the kids. You said duty.
Yes, yes. So duty is essentially an extra assignment, and this varies depending on the service member's job. For my husband, when he would have duty days on the ship, it was considered a 24-hour work day, and for the most part, he had those every 3 days.
Wow.
So he'd go in for a duty day in the morning at 6 a.m. and it would be a 24-hour workday, which then gets you to 6 a.m. the next day. And then he has his normal work day of, 10 to 12 hours before he was able to come home. So duty days are essentially 36 hours.
Wow.
And then they also happen on the weekends. So if he had a duty on Thursday, the next one would be a Sunday. So he'd have to go in. It was rough.
You said that those are, how often they have those?
For his duties, they have duty sections, so they break up everybody to have groups that each have their own duty day. Mm-hmm. For the most part, he was 3-section. They call it 3-section duty. So he had it every 3 days.
Every 3 days.
Yeah.
Wow. I can only imagine that. I look at myself when I'm teaching and be like, man, I had to work like 70 hours this week, but I would not be up for 24 hours. Like that is a different world. That is a lot of different level of caffeine and that I cannot even imagine. Yeah. I couldn't even think about that. And that's the things that he has to deal with and do. That's and a lot of the responsibilities that he has. Man, I think it's bad having 105 kids. I can't imagine what it's like with all the responsibilities that he has, especially being on a ship. Like that's just so many moving parts. Like go into there. I couldn't even imagine it. So I guess the first thing that we'll kind of dive into is looking at what it's like being a Navy wife. Is that a term that really like you're like Navy wife, or do you like, hey, I want to be like, that's a term that's overused, or what do you feel about that one?
Well, as far as Navy wife, it does narrow down to which brand and wife, but a lot of the times the generic term most people use is military spouse. And the reason why they say military spouse is because, first of all, not all spouses are wives. True. We actually have numerous women that are service members, and their husbands are actually the ones that are the stay-at-home dads. So we try to be a little bit more, as I say, politically correct and say spouse, military spouse, to incorporate both roles.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you for adding that in there, because that is a huge deal. That there's a lot of stereotypes out there and a lot of things that people don't think about. And that is a really huge one. So, yes.
The community for the military spouses that are men is a small community. And I wanted to make sure that they do feel loved and welcomed. And we know that you are there because they are amazing staying home and taking care of the kids. We have a neighbor right down the road from us. The mom is a service member and the dad stays home with the 3 kids. And I know how hard it is with 2. He does 3 and does an amazing job.
Wow. So, yeah, 3.
Power to them.
That's the thing. I was one of 3, and I know how much 3 can be a handle for. Like 2, you could somewhat keep a little bit of a better handle on, especially like you're forced to play together with this other one kind of deal or something like that. But whenever there's a third one, you're like, that could be the oddball of like somewhere left field. Because I was not saying super later than my brothers and sisters, but there's 4 or 5 years difference than me and my sister and brother. They're like I think a year and a half apart, and I'm a little bit later, and so that's a difference in age range as well. So that's a lot of respect to any parent Doesn't matter who you are, just any parent that is a stay-at-home parent. That is a lot of work to be able to do. So mad props to anybody. Doesn't matter what type of walk of life you do. That's amazing. A lot of lovely effort there that gets overlooked. So the first thing, whenever looking at when you're in the military and your spouse, there's so many different like myths and misconceptions. And is there any of those that you would like to address kind of before we get into a little bit further into the podcast?
Yes. Well, first, we already kind of went over that they are not just military wives.
Yes.
It's military spouses. So incorporate everybody in that. And the other that I find too is that a lot of people assume that all military families are the same because we're military. And even though, yes, there are some general similarities that we all experience, each branch of the military is different. Each family experiences different duty stations. Their service member have different jobs, different schedules, etc., which makes each of our experiences very unique. The best way I can kind of give an analogy to this is similar to two doctors that go through medical school together. They have the same training. One of them may specialize and do additional training and education to specialize, say maybe an ER doctor who works in a hospital, working, longer shifts and more crisis situations, working in an ER, more demanding hours are crazy, compared to the other doctor who may decide to go part-time working at a clinic 2 days a week. So even though they both went to the same school, they work in very different locations, very different hours, stress levels. And that's similar to, at least for us with the Navy, doing just within the Navy branch, how different it could be with a sailor that could be deployed on a submarine, where it's a very small knit group of 160 people on this claustrophobic submarine under the water.
Yeah.
Versus my husband, who was on an aircraft carrier, which is essentially a mini city on water. It's 5,000 people on this huge ship. So there's so many more people, but they're still deployed versus the submarine that's only out for a couple months. Aircraft carriers can be out for 6 to 7 months with an extended deployment. So it's very different even within the Navy community, but even comparing it to an Army soldier deployed to the Middle East for 12 months away from their family members.
I can only imagine that
across the country.
Wow. That's a year, something like that. Wow.
Yes, and we have friends that have experienced that in other branches of the military, and then you've got some that do not deploy and are stationed in one location for years while others move around. And so I want to say that it's important that we try not to belittle anybody that has struggles, because even though their struggles may feel less to me or to another family, because ours still stronger. Everyone goes through the same struggles, and it's important to support each other.
Yes, it is.
And understand that we all still have the same, all military, but it's very different for each of us. And then kind of going off with the deployments, another idea is that spouses are very dependent upon the service member. And I would like to say that it is very hard that we move every couple of years, a lot of times on short notice, and we don't have a say in where we end up going.
Yeah, I remember you hearing that all the time of like, hey, like we're moving from California to Tennessee. I'm like, wait, what? When did that come up? I found out yesterday.
Weren't you in New York? Yeah,
exactly.
Wait, we're moving again.
Yeah.
Yes, we have no idea where we are going next. We just know that we are moving again at some point, eventually. Don't know where, but it's going to be somewhere. And living so far away from family and having that support system, you have to build that when you move each time. And you have to essentially start a new life and create a new support system each time you move. And thanks to social media, that does make it a lot easier by being able to join Facebook groups and meet some people before you actually move. But this all takes a very strong and independent person to handle the stress and changes that we have no control over. And so I hear it a lot where there's a derogatory term that a lot of people call military spouses dependents. And I could go on and on about it.
I'm sorry on that one. I have heard that one.
Yes. And I will say that there are some people that can fulfill that dependa, I guess, description.
Yeah, the stereotype that pops up, somebody's seen it, so someone's creating the term, which is really unfortunate.
It's really unfortunate because it becomes a bully term
Yes.
that is used, and it's very sad to hear that. I feel a lot of it comes to people that do not have the experience or know. And again, it goes back to we all struggle, and your struggles might be worse or more than mine. Mine may be less, mine may be more as well. But the point is, we all struggle, and it's a challenge for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting up and you're going to a whole new place that you've maybe never even visited or heard of
Mm-hmm.
at that point, and trying to find a place to live, trying to figure
Mm-hmm.
out on, okay, but you're working a job and then you're going, you know what? I've only been here for like a month and now I've got to like resign and maybe go somewhere else. But you've always found people that have kind of helped you out too along that way. And something that I've also heard within like the military is that coming up with like the cheating and divorce for when you're gone for what is it? Sometimes a year, year and a half. Do you think that you want to address kind of within that community that comes up?
Yes, I would like to say a lot of people do bring up saying military. It makes it harder on marriages, which in today's society, marriage is hard in general.
Yes.
And so then you add the military component into it. And is there cheating and divorce in the military community? Yes. But I will say there's also cheating and divorce in the civilian community. As I
Yes, there
said,
is.
my parents were both divorced and not military. So military and divorce, I feel it adds another level of another stressor, and no different than financial stress and mental emotional stress as well as communication in a relationship. That there's cheating everywhere. And
That's
I
true.
will say that a lot of people say, oh, it's the service member or it's the wife. It's both.
Yes. It's
I've
not a
seen
one-sided battle
it's
here.
not one sided. I've seen the service member cheat. I've seen a spouse cheat. I've seen them both cheat. But then the same thing, I've seen my friends that are not military who go through the same struggles with their husband cheating and their wife cheating or both. And I feel it becomes a personal thing. It's that individual, they're going to cheat whether it's in the military or not. It happens everywhere. But a lot of it is contributed to the deployments with the decreased communication and the added stress. And it happens, unfortunately.
It is really unfortunate when it comes to any situation with
Yes.
cheating and being separated, and what you think starts out as a very good relationship can people change over time as well. As you grow apart, it's best to not to hurt the relationship of whenever you're together and you don't want to be together and it's being detrimental to your health or something or someone else. It's very good to have that separation rather than that
Mm-hmm.
through the divorce. I know there's a lot of complications to that and with religious beliefs and political beliefs and stuff, but it's you should never risk your own health and your happiness. So
I agree. And a lot of military couples, they marry young. And because of the deployments, a lot of times they are, instead of growing together at being, seeing each other every day and being at home and communicating every day, they tend to grow a little bit more independently apart from each other. And
yeah,
sometimes those paths grow apart. Some of them grow closer together. I will say that my husband and I did marry young, and we were 21. Well, for me, I was 21 and married considered young. I know I wasn't 18, but we did tend to grow in some ways. I became more independent
mm-hmm.
and found myself, but we also grew together through communication. And I feel that the lack of communication is what is detrimental to a lot of relationships.
Yes.
I believe it's the first domino piece to fall in a struggling marriage. And we have had our share of struggles and conversations about divorce. Not gonna lie, we have had some moments where it has come up in our relationship. And during those moments, we found that the lack of communication was actually like the number one root cause of many of our problems. And we utilized marriage counseling which helped us improve our communication and strengthened our marriage. And we've used those communication, like coping skills
Yes.
and concepts of communicating better and working with each other. And we've utilized those in our future problems that have come up.
You
And
get
it's
it in
helped us
advance.
resolve.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So we struggled a lot until we found the tools of
There you go.
communication.
Tools for your
Yes,
toolbox. Yeah.
yes, tools, communication tools that our marriage counselor helped us with. And we've applied those to each of our problems, and it's helped us to be able to work through them. And our communication is better than it was years ago. Our relationship is better for it. And we have found that communication tends to be the number one. There's obviously there's the reasons, but it starts with the lack of communication.
True. Yeah, I always find whenever I hear young couples or people that are dating, it's like, oh, we don't argue. We've never had an argument. I go, uh-oh. Because my brain goes to whenever you have an argument, you learn that they may not like something that you're doing, or you don't like something that they're doing. You're able to create a conversation at that point. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how you can be able to grow. If you're not communicating it, that creates you're spiteful about something, you're frustrated about it. And if you don't tell the person, they don't know. Like for sure. They don't know you're upset until all of a sudden you've maybe exploded on somebody, like, where did this come from? Like this was left field. So that having a little bit of those arguments, I think, is very healthy. Now, I'm not saying just to go have an argument. Just it helps kind of create a little bit of that communication lines of I don't like this or I do like that. And sometimes listening and just saying that sucks, like just being that person, just listening to that person talk, allowing them to talk about something that they're really passionate about, and you may not like it, but at the end of the day, you're like, I support them, I love what they're talking about because they're passionate about it. And in the inside, you might be like, you know what, I could care less, but because they love it, I'm going to listen, I'm going to take care of it, because at the end of the day, they're going to hear the same thing back from me at some point. And that's part of growth and love and care for your community and your friends and your loved ones. So I don't know, that we both went on little side stuff there, and I love it because that
Oh
creates a
no, it, it
conversation.
it it rolls into the most important things that I feel for a relationship are communication and respect.
Yes.
Um, and I feel loving somebody is communicating with them, and that may be where there's my husband and I. We don't have very many arguments anymore. We used to have a lot of arguments because, like you said, I was definitely one of those people that I would hold everything inside and it would boil over and we would have a knockdown drag out fight. I would yell and get so upset because I would not communicate things and we had trouble communicating, obviously. But now that we communicate more, we don't argue as much because once we start feeling we have those frustrations, we communicate with each other, like you said, of expressing that.
You're using your tools from your toolbox.
Yes, yes. So we made it a thing that every time my husband leaves work, he calls me and he vents about his day, whether it was good, bad, and just gets it out so that when he comes home, it's about a 10-15 minute drive home. So he's able to walk through the door and leave everything from work behind and focus on family time and the kids. And I give him that time and respect of listening to him. And then sometimes I'm able to vent as well if it's been a rough day with the kids. So we respect each other and hear each other out and see, okay, well, he's had a really bad day. Let me grab the kids and put them outside so he can come in real quick, change clothes, and kind of decompress a minute, and then go see the kids. So understanding and respecting each other's needs is huge for relationships.
Yeah, it totally is. I'm 100% with you on board for that one. And whenever you come home, you step inside that house, that's a big thing to make sure that you're spending time with each other and your family and your kids. And I respect my parents for having done that whenever coming home, to make sure they can separate that. And you're being great models for your children to be able to do that. And that's something that they will carry forward. So my hat's off to you again on all these things that you do for it. So what is it like in the military life for Navy wives?
Well, I want to make sure that I'm very clear that I do not speak for all military wives or all Navy wives, because as I said, we all go through our own struggles. So I can just express the struggles that I deal with for my life in the military
We'll
as a
rephrase the
spouse.
question of what is life for this Navy wife?
Yes, what is it like for this Navy wife? And so it is a struggle being so far away from family and friends. A lot of the time, we tend to be the ones that have to travel to go see family because it is easier when it was just me and my husband in California before kids. It was easy for two of us to buy a plane ticket to go see, 50 to 100 family members versus all of them trying to travel and come see us.
Yeah, it's a
So
lot.
it is hard being so far away and not seeing each other as often. The other aspect is not having any control over our lives, and the aspect of we don't know where we're going to be moving or when. But we got orders to California thinking, awesome, I'm going to be living the dream in California for
West
5 years.
Coast. Here we go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
West Coast, woohoo! And after, oh, we're only there for a year, and then they send us to Washington because the ship needs some maintenance work done. So we had to move to Washington, and not as fun as
And
California, by the
all the
way.
rain. All the
Yes,
rain.
all the rain and the cold. I was very, very bitter when I was promised San Diego for 5 years. So we were only there for a little over a year before going back to San Diego, and I loved it. And then thought, all right, awesome. He was going to go to Japan, and told that, yep, we're going to go to Japan for a year. We get to explore a new country. Awesome. He was going to go. I was going to visit, stay in California and keep working and building my nursing career. And then, whoops, just kidding. You're actually going to go to New York.
Wow.
So,
Total opposite ends of the world there.
completely opposite. So I had to stop working at the job that I loved, that I was building my nursing career, and move to New York, where I tried.
Y'all were up in the ice and cold portion of that. Were y'all near Buffalo, wasn't it?
Close. We were in Saratoga Springs, New York. It's in upstate New York in the Adirondacks, right
Still
north
in
of
the
Albany.
snow belt.
Yes, it was nothing to get 36 inches of snow over a course of 2 days. And the day after, the kids went back to school because they had snow piles.
Wow.
I was working both of the days.
Oh,
It rained, snowed 36 inches in March, and over both of those days, I was driving to work. The snow
wow.
piles up there are amazing, and yes, it's crazy. I did not like the snow, but I really enjoyed living in New York. So even though I say the Navy is a curse by sending us somewhere we did not want to go initially, it ended up being amazing and working out for us, where we had both of our kids in New York, and he was able to be home for that. It was great.
That's awesome. That is so good because I know so many families that were not able to be there, and that's hard when that's kind of that presence. And sometimes the ice and snow can build your appreciation for warm weather.
Yes, yes. And I know I complain a lot about the moving, and one of the the phrases that I do hear a lot is, "Well, you know what you were signing up for when you married the service member." I hear that a lot every time I complain, and that may be why I am very hesitant to complain or tell the truth of our struggles. Is I hear that a lot as a response is, "Well, you know what you're signing up for." Well, actually, I didn't.
I could put that phrase on anything, like in terms of like a teacher, a doctor,
Yes,
a person who works nights at a such and such plant. You never really ever know what you're signing up for because every situation is always different and everything changes from second to second. So I hate that term. I've always heard that with teachers and with all kinds of different stuff as well. Whenever I got into the teacher professions, teachers marry a lot of teachers and this, and because they know what they're getting into and this. I'm like, no, we don't. Like, don't start lying to me. And whenever someone adds that to any field, because everything is different.
yes, I will say I did not sign papers for the military. I did not know what was going to be required of him. I just signed papers to marry the love of my life
There
and
you
to be with
go.
him. So I signed up to be with him, and therefore, by default, I signed up
Proxy.
to. Yeah, by proxy. Yes, by proxy, I am signed up with the military. And so I'm going to complain about it because I actually did not sign with the military. I signed with him.
Yeah.
So I didn't know the frequency of how often we would be moving or what deployments would be like, the lack of control over most aspects of our life. Because the military experience that my family had was in the Air Force, where they were stationed in one place for a very long extended period of time, was not the experience that we are having right now.
True.
So yes, we move every couple of years, when my Air Force family did not. And so it's very different.
That is very definitely something that everything is different. Nothing's ever the same. Like my wife didn't sign up for some of my issues that I've run into with my mental illness problems that I've got, but we're still here, we're still there, we're still going. You know, that's part of it, and anything could change tomorrow.
Exactly. You just take it one step at a time. And I get asked a lot of, how do you handle all the moves and going from one location to the other? And it is just take it one day at a time, with coordinating the move and finding a new house, checklist, new job, new friends. Yes, so it is hard, because you meet new people that you build friendships with, and then you end up leaving again, or they leave, especially if they're also military.
That's
Like
true.
my friend that I've known for 9 years, we met when our husbands were on the same ship in California, and they have moved, we have moved, and 9 years we're still talking, and they're currently stationed in Florida. So we're actually really close now. So we actually, every few months, we are traveling to see each other. Either she comes up to
Vacation.
Tennessee. Yep, I go down to Pensacola for the beach. So, and obviously, during the cold months, she's come up here for Thanksgiving and New Year's, and we've gone down there in the summer for beach time. So we're making that connection as our friends work for us, of
You have
keeping in
to.
touch, and their family.
Yep, exactly. And you mentioned, like, with social media earlier. Look at what we're doing right now. We are via Zoom,
Exactly.
sitting having this conversation, and having this less than 20 years ago. Like, this is still very new for it. And I am happy that we got to be on the other end of seeing the end of, as technology starting to find its way. I'm glad I got to be a teenager before that came into play, because of anything you do is 100% perfectly recorded. It can come back. It's in the cloud. And I say the cloud reigns, and watch out when it does. So,
I mean, looking back of years ago, we're not going to say how many years, when we were on a messenger communicating when I moved to Kentucky, and you were in
yep.
Georgia, and keeping up with you and Billy and others.
AOL Messenger.
And yeah, AOL and dial up, and in the middle of a conversation and getting kicked off the internet because of a phone call at the house. And, trying to keep up. Yes, trying to maintain that line of communication. And we made it, though. We're still here talking.
We still have. That's saying we've made it. We continue going forward. We're going to take a pause in the conversation here. I feel like this was a good spot to be able to stop, and we'll pick back up not too long from now to be able to continue to discuss this topic of Jade being a military wife. So let's leave off here, continue on our journey, and I'll see you soon. If you'd like to reach out, you can email me at Cade, which is spelled Cade, at learningfromfriends.com. You can reach out through Facebook. I have a Facebook podcast page. You can reach out through Twitter. I also have a Patreon page. If you would like to be able to donate, I would love it. It'd be great to contribute towards the podcast growth. So as we leave here today, most of all, don't forget, drop your curiosity, fly high.